She fed him every day out of pure compassion, but the dying man was no victim. He was a mafia boss testing her soul. The old man in booth 7 was dying. Anyone could see it. His hands trembled as he lifted the water glass. His skin had that grayish pallor that spoke of illness eating him from the inside. He came to the Bluebird Diner every morning at 6 a.m., ordered nothing but black coffee, and sat alone watching the sun rise through grease-stained windows. Zara Williams had been watching him for 3 weeks. 26 years old, working doubles at a diner in South Central LA, she'd seen enough of life's cruelty to recognize it in human form. The old man never ate, just coffee, black, 2 refills. Then he'd leave a $5 bill and shuffle out like every step cost him. "He's gonna die in that booth one day," her coworker Marcus said, wiping down the counter. "Probably can't afford food, or maybe he's just given up." Zara looked at the old man, really looked. His suit was expensive once, but now hung loose on a frame that had clearly lost significant weight. His shoes were polished despite being worn. Pride, she thought. He's got pride even while he's dying. That morning, she made a decision that would change everything. She grabbed a plate, scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, hash browns, the works, and carried it to booth 7. "On the house," she said with a smile, setting it in front of him. The old man looked up, and Zara caught her breath. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, completely at odds with his frail appearance. For a moment, something flickered in those dark depths. Surprise, calculation, maybe even amusement. Then it was gone, replaced by watery gratitude. "I can't accept," he said in heavily accented English, pushing the plate away with shaking hands. "I didn't order." "I know, but you need to eat, sir, and I need to feed someone who needs it. So please, let me do this." He studied her face like he was memorizing it. Then slowly he picked up his fork. Zara watched him take the first bite, saw something like relief cross his features, and felt warmth spread through her chest. This was why she'd become a waitress despite her business degree. These moments, these small acts of human kindness in a world that had too little of it. What Zara didn't know, couldn't know, was that the dying old man was 38-year-old Kang Jae-sung, head of the most powerful Korean criminal organization in Los Angeles. That his illness was expertly applied makeup and carefully practiced tremors. That he'd been sent to test her, to see if the woman his intelligence network had identified as unsuitably compassionate would prove to be a liability to their operation. And what Jae-sung didn't know was that this simple act of kindness from a waitress who couldn't afford it would make him question everything he'd built his life on. The next morning, the old man was back. Same booth, same time. Zara brought him coffee and another full breakfast without being asked. "Morning, Mr. Kim," she said using the name he'd given her the day before. "You can't keep feeding me for free," he protested weakly. "Your boss doesn't need to know. Besides, you think I'm paying full price for this food?" "Employee discount means this costs me like $3. Small price to make sure someone eats." She refilled his coffee. "You got family, Mr. Kim? Someone who can help you?" Something dark crossed his face. "Had a daughter once, long ago. She would be about your age now." "What happened to her?" "I made choices, bad choices. She paid the price." His accent seemed to thicken with emotion. "This is my punishment, to die alone." "You're not alone," Zara said firmly. "You got me, and I'm not going anywhere." In the kitchen, Marcus pulled her aside. "Z, you can't keep giving away food. Diego's gonna notice eventually, and you'll get fired." "Let him notice. That old man is dying, Marcus. Dying. And he comes here every morning probably because it's the only human contact he has. I'm not gonna let him starve just to keep a job at a diner that pays minimum wage." "You got the biggest heart of anyone I know," Marcus said, shaking his head. "It's gonna get you in trouble one day." "Probably, but at least I'll be able to sleep at night." What Zara didn't see was the old man pulling out a phone the moment she returned to the kitchen. Didn't see him text a message in Korean to a number with no name. Didn't see the slight smile that crossed his face as he typed, "She's real. The compassion isn't an act." Proceeding to phase 2. The routine continued. Every morning Zara brought breakfast. Every morning they talked. The old man, Mr. Kim, told stories about Korea in the 1960s, about coming to America with nothing, about building and losing and building again. His English got better each day, Zara noticed. but she attributed it to him feeling more comfortable. "You're too kind for this world," he said one morning, watching her refill his coffee for the third time. "Someone will take advantage of that kindness. Maybe, but I'd rather be taken advantage of than turn cold and suspicious." My mama always said, "Zara, you can't control what people do to you, but you can control who you choose to be." I choose to be someone who helps. Your mother sounds wise. She was. Breast cancer took her 3 years ago. She was a waitress too, worked herself to death trying to give me a better life, and I ended up right where she was. Zara's smile turned bittersweet. "But she'd be proud I'm feeding you. She always said feeding people was holy work." Mr. Kim's hands trembled, but this time Zara suspected it wasn't from illness. She was right. In my country, we have a saying, if you save a life, you become responsible for it. You've saved mine many times over these past weeks. "Just brought you eggs, Mr. Kim. That's not saving a life, isn't it?" His eyes met hers, and for just a second, Zara saw something fierce and vital behind the frailty. Then he blinked and it was gone. "What do you dream of, Zara? Beyond this diner?" The question surprised her. No one asked about her dreams. "I want to open a restaurant, a real one. Not fancy, just good food at fair prices. A place where everyone feels welcome, where working people can afford to eat well, where—" She trailed off, embarrassed. "Where kindness is the main ingredient," Mr. Kim finished. "You would succeed at this. You have the heart for it." "Heart doesn't pay for a business loan. I've got $8,000 saved. Need about 10 times that just to start. So for now, I bring eggs to dying men and call it enough." Mr. Kim reached across the table, his trembling hand covering hers. "Never call your kindness enough like it's a small thing. Your kindness is everything. It's what separates humans from animals, what makes life worth living." His grip tightened, and for a moment it didn't feel frail at all. "Promise me you'll never lose that, no matter what happens." "I promise, Mr. Kim. Now eat before it gets cold." That night, in a penthouse office overlooking downtown LA, Jae-sung sat across from his second-in-command, Min-ho, and peeled off the latex that aged his face by decades. The transformation was startling, from dying old man to vital, dangerous, devastatingly handsome crime lord in minutes. "The test is complete," Min-ho said in Korean. "She's proven consistent, feeds you daily, refuses payment, shows genuine compassion. The surveillance confirms she has no ulterior motives. She's simply kind." "Too kind for the world we inhabit," Jae-sung murmured, studying his real face in the mirror. At 28, he'd already built an empire on violence and fear, had killed his first man at 19, had inherited his father's organization at 23, and expanded it beyond imagination. He was wealthy, powerful, untouchable, and completely empty. "So we proceed with the original plan?" Min-ho asked. "Use her restaurant dream as leverage to secure the Inglewood territory? She buys the building we've selected, we use it for money laundering, and everyone wins." Jae-sung was quiet for a long moment. "She asked me about family today, about my daughter." "The cover story daughter." "Yes, and I told her I'd lost her due to bad choices. For a moment, I wasn't lying." Jae-sung turned from the mirror. "I've been testing her for 3 weeks. Every morning, she brings food she can barely afford, talks to me like I'm human, treats a dying stranger with more compassion than I've shown anyone in a decade. She's a mark, a useful tool for our expansion. She's a good person in a world where I've eliminated most of them." Jae-sung's jaw tightened. "Continue surveillance. But Min-ho, don't let anyone touch her. She's off limits for any operation until I decide otherwise." "Boss, if you're developing feelings—" "I'm not. I'm incapable of feelings. You know this. I'm simply interested in studying someone so fundamentally different from everyone in our world. Call it anthropological curiosity." Min-ho didn't look convinced, but he nodded. "As you wish. Though for what it's worth, your father would say she's a weakness waiting to be exploited. My father is dead because he let his weaknesses show. I won't make that mistake." But even as Jae-sung said it, he touched the spot on his hand where Zara had laid hers, and wondered if it was already too late. Week 4, and Mr. Kim looked worse. His trembling had increased, his color was grayer, and he could barely finish half the breakfast Zara brought. She sat across from him during her break, watching him push eggs around his plate. Mr. Kim, you need to see a doctor. Whatever this is, it's getting worse. Doctors can't fix what's wrong with me, he said quietly. Some things are beyond medicine. Then at least let me help in other ways. Do you have somewhere to stay? Are you eating dinner? Taking care of yourself? Why do you care so much? The question was soft, genuinely curious. You don't know me. I could be a terrible person, a criminal, a monster. Zara smiled. You know what I see when I look at you. I see someone who's lost, someone who's given up, someone who needs to know that they still matter to someone, even a stranger. She reached across to touch his trembling hand. And yeah, maybe you were a bad person once. Maybe you did terrible things. But Mr. Kim, nobody deserves to die alone and hungry. Nobody. Something in his eyes cracked. Real emotion flooded through, raw and painful. You're wrong. Some people deserve exactly that. Well, I don't believe that. And even if you do, I'm still going to bring you breakfast every morning, so you might as well eat it. He laughed, a real laugh that seemed to surprise him. You're stubborn. Black woman from South Central, Mr. Kim. Stubborn is in my DNA. Now eat before I start feeding you myself like you're my grandpa. Over the next weeks, their morning routine deepened. Mr. Kim started arriving earlier, staying later. He asked about Zara's life, her dreams of opening a restaurant, her business degree from community college, her struggles to make ends meet while saving every penny. And he listened. Really listened, in a way that made Zara feel seen. You're easy to talk to, she told him one morning. Most people don't actually listen, you know. They just wait for their turn to talk. But you make me feel like what I say matters. Because it does matter. You matter. His accent had almost completely disappeared now, but Zara was too caught up in the conversation to notice. Tell me about your father. You've spoken of your mother, but never him. Zara's expression hardened. Never met him. He left before I was born. Mama said he was just passing through. Never meant to stay. She raised me alone. That must have been difficult. Made me strong. Made me independent. Made me know my worth wasn't tied to whether some man wanted me. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Though I gotta admit, sometimes I wonder what it would have been like. Having a father. Someone to protect me, you know? Make me feel safe. Mr. Kim's hand trembled worse than usual as he reached for his coffee. Safety is an illusion, Zara. The world is dangerous. The only protection that matters is the kind you build yourself. That's a cynical way to look at life. That's a realistic way. I've seen what happens when people rely on others for safety, for love, for validation. They get destroyed when it's taken away. So what? We should just never trust anyone? Never let anyone in? That's not living, Mr. Kim. That's just surviving. He stared at her for a long moment. You're young. You still believe in good things. Don't let the world take that from you. I'm 26. I've worked 3 jobs since I was 16, buried my mother, been rejected from business loans 7 times, and had my heart broken more times than I can count. The world's tried pretty hard to take my hope, but it's still here. She tapped her chest. Because I choose to keep it here. Choice, Mr. Kim murmured. Yes, perhaps that's the difference between us. You choose hope. I chose something else long ago. It's never too late to choose differently. Isn't it? His eyes met hers and Zara saw depths of pain she couldn't begin to understand. Some choices change you so fundamentally that there's no going back. You become something new, something that can't be unmade. I don't believe that. People can change, can be redeemed. You have more faith in humanity than it deserves. Maybe, but somebody has to, right? Might as well be me. That night, Jae-sung stood in his penthouse, staring at the city lights while Min-ho briefed him on operations. But his mind was elsewhere, on a waitress who brought breakfast to dying strangers, on her insistence that people could change, on the way she looked at him, at his disguise, with pure, uncomplicated compassion. Boss, are you listening? She thinks people can be redeemed, Jae-sung said quietly. Sir? Zara. She believes that no matter what someone's done, they can change, can become something better. He turned to face Min-ho. Do you believe that? Min-ho chose his words carefully. I believe people can change their actions. Whether that constitutes redemption, I don't know. Why are you asking? Because I've killed 17 people, ordered the deaths of hundreds more, built an empire on violence and fear and exploitation. And every morning, a woman who can barely afford rent brings food to a dying stranger because she believes in kindness. Jae-sung's laugh was bitter. She has no idea she's feeding a monster. Then end the operation, reveal yourself or don't, but stop this before it becomes complicated. It's already complicated. I'm testing her to see if she's genuine enough to exploit for our Inglewood expansion, but every day she proves herself to be exactly what she appears. Genuinely, impossibly good. And he stopped. You what? I don't want to corrupt that. For the first time in my life, I don't want to destroy something beautiful just because I can. Minho was quiet for a long moment. Your father always said that the moment you hesitate to use an asset, you've already lost. My father died screaming because he underestimated someone he thought he could use. Maybe hesitation is wisdom, not weakness. Or maybe, Minho said carefully, you're falling for her, and that will get you both killed. Jae-sung didn't answer, because Minho was right, and they both knew it. In their world, love was the ultimate liability, the final weakness that enemies exploited without mercy. His father had loved his mother, and she'd been murdered to send a message. Jae-sung had sworn never to give anyone that kind of leverage over him, but every morning, when Zara smiled and brought him food she couldn't afford, Jae-sung felt that oath cracking, felt something human stirring in a chest he'd thought was completely dead. And the terrifying part was that he didn't want it to stop. Week 7. Mr. Kim collapsed in the diner. Zara was refilling his coffee when she saw him slump forward, his head hitting the table with a sickening thud. Mr. Kim! She dropped the pot. It shattered on the floor and rushed to his side. Somebody call 911. Marcus was already on the phone while Zara cradled Mr. Kim's head. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. Zara, he whispered, I'm sorry, so sorry. Don't talk. Save your strength. The ambulance is coming. Need to tell you, before it's too late, I'm not. A coughing fit cut him off. When he pulled his hand away from his mouth, there was blood. Theatrical blood, perfectly placed. But Zara didn't know that. She just saw a dying man getting worse. Please, Mr. Kim, please hold on. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics loaded him onto a stretcher. As they wheeled him out, Mr. Kim grabbed Zara's hand with surprising strength. The restaurant, he gasped. Your dream. Don't give up on it. Promise me. I promise. Now stop talking and let them help you. She watched the ambulance drive away, lights flashing, and felt her heart breaking for a man she'd known for less than 2 months. Marcus came to stand beside her, putting an arm around her shoulders. He's gonna be okay, Z. You probably saved his life, feeding him all those weeks, built up his strength. Or I waited too long to make him get real help. Tears streamed down her face. I should have called social services or something. Should have done more than just bring eggs. You did what you could. That's all anyone can ask. That night, unable to sleep, Zara called the hospital. No patient by the name of Kim had been admitted. She tried variations, different spellings. Nothing. It was like he'd vanished into thin air. Fear clawed at her chest. Had he died in the ambulance? Been taken to a different hospital? Or had he given her a fake name and she'd never be able to find out what happened? What Zara didn't know was that Mr. Kim had been taken to a private facility owned by the Kang organization. That Jae-sung was currently being chewed out by Minho for letting the operation go too far. That the blood had been fake, but the emotion in his eyes when he looked at her had been devastatingly real. This ends now, Minho said firmly. We've gathered enough intel on her patterns. We proceed with the Inglewood plan, use her restaurant dream to secure the location, and you never see her again. No. Boss, I said no. We're not using her. We're not touching her. The Inglewood expansion happens through other means. That will cost us months, potentially millions. All because you've developed an attachment to a mark? Jae-sung's eyes went cold. Careful, Minho. You're questioning my judgment. I'm trying to protect you from yourself. This woman has gotten under your skin, made you soft. Your father, my father is dead. I'm in charge. And I'm telling you, Zara Williams is off limits. Completely. We find another way into Inglewood, or we don't go in at all. After Minho left, Jae-sung stood alone in the sterile medical room, staring at his reflection. The old age makeup was gone. His real face stared back, young, hard, bearing the scars of a violent life. This was who he really was. Not a dying old man worthy of compassion, but a crime lord who'd built an empire on others' suffering. And Zara, beautiful, kind, impossible Zara, had shown him more genuine care in 7 weeks than anyone had in his entire life. Not because of who he was or what he could do for her, but simply because she'd seen someone suffering and decided to help. He pulled out his phone, pulled up the surveillance footage his team had compiled, watched Zara on her break, eating ramen from a cup because she'd given away her meal allowance to feed him. Watched her arguing with her boss about wasting food while defending her choice to feed a stranger. Watched her crying in her car after his collapse, genuinely devastated for a man she barely knew. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the screen. "I'm so sorry for lying to you, for testing you, for being exactly the kind of monster you believe can be redeemed." And then Kang Jae-sung, feared leader of the Korean Mafia, head of a criminal empire, made a decision that would change everything. He would tell her the truth, all of it, and he would give her a choice: walk away and never see him again, or stay and let him try to become worthy of the faith she'd shown a dying stranger. It was insane. It violated every rule he'd lived by. But for the first time in a decade, Jae-sung wanted something more than power. He wanted to deserve the way Zara had looked at him, even if that meant risking everything. 3 days later, Zara was closing the diner when someone knocked on the locked door. It was 11 p.m., way past closing. She almost ignored it, but something made her look up. A man stood outside, young, Korean, devastatingly handsome in an expensive suit. Something about him was familiar, but Zara couldn't place it. She cracked the door. "Sorry, we're closed." "I know. I came to see you specifically, Zara Williams." Her danger instincts fired. "How do you know my name?" "Because I've been watching you for 7 weeks, eating your food, listening to your dreams, letting you feed me like I was dying." His accent was barely noticeable now, just a hint of Korea in his vowels. Zara's blood ran cold. "Mr. Kim?" "Not Mr. Kim. My name is Kang Jae-sung. I'm 28 years old. I run the Korean organized crime syndicate in Los Angeles, and I've been lying to you since the moment we met." The world tilted. Zara gripped the doorframe, mind racing. "That's not possible. You were old, sick, dying." Makeup, performance, a test designed to determine if your compassion was real or an act we could exploit for territorial expansion. He pulled out his phone, showed her a picture, him, in the old age makeup, sitting in booth 7. "I needed to know if you were genuine, if someone could really be that kind without ulterior motives." Rage flooded through her. You made me think you were dying, made me care about you, used my kindness against me as some kind of test?" Her voice rose. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" "Everything. I'm a criminal, Zara. I've killed people, ordered deaths, built an empire on violence. My world doesn't have room for kindness like yours. So when my intelligence network identified you as someone with exploitable compassion, I decided to test it personally." "Get the fuck away from me!" Zara's hand shook as she started to close the door. "Wait, please. I know I have no right to ask, but please just let me explain." "Explain what?" "How you manipulated me. How you made me cry over a dying man who didn't exist. How you're probably planning to use everything I told you against me somehow." "I was planning that. The original plan was to use your restaurant dream, get you to buy a specific property we needed for money laundering, then own you through debt and legal complications." His honesty was brutal, unsparing. "But Zara, something happened. Every day you brought me food. Every day you talked to me like I was human, like I mattered. And I've never experienced that before." "So what, I'm supposed to feel sorry for the rich crime lord who has everything?" "No, you're supposed to hate me. I'm here because you deserve the truth, all of it, and because I'm giving you a choice." "What choice?" "Walk away, right now. I'll make sure you're protected, that no one in my organization or any rival group ever touches you. You'll get a letter in a week about a community grant for small business owners. $80,000, enough to start your restaurant. No strings, no catch. Just a crime lord trying to do one decent thing for the person who taught him what kindness looks like." Zara stared at him, trying to process this. And option 2? You let me in. Let me explain everything. Why I did this. What I discovered. How you changed something fundamental in me. And then you decide if a monster can be redeemed, or if that was just a beautiful lie you told a dying man. Every survival instinct Zara had screamed to take the money and run. This man was dangerous. He'd admitted to murder, to running a criminal empire, to planning to exploit her. He'd manipulated her compassion and lied to her face for weeks. But a smaller voice whispered, "You told him people could change. That redemption was possible. Was that true or just pretty words?" "If I let you in," Zara said slowly, "you tell me everything. No more lies, no more manipulation, complete honesty, even if it makes you look worse." "Agreed. And if I decide you're too dangerous, too far gone, I walk away and you let me. No retaliation, no you know too much bullshit. You have my word, which I know means nothing right now, but I'll prove it's worth something." Zara unlocked the door fully, stepped back. "You've got 1 hour, then I decide." Jae-sung entered the diner, and they sat across from each other in booth 7, the booth where this had all started, where a lie had been told and a truth had been discovered. "My father was Kang Min-seok," Jae-sung began. "He came to America in 1985, already running operations in Seoul. Built the Korean Mafia presence here from nothing. I was born into this life. Literally. My first memory is my father teaching me to shoot a gun. I was 5 years old." Zara listened, face carefully neutral. "I killed my first person when I was 19, a rival gang member who was planning to assassinate my father. I beat him to death with my hands in an alley in Koreatown. And you know what I felt? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like I'd been born without the part of me that was supposed to care about taking a life. That's not possible. Everyone has empathy." "Do they? Because I spent the next 9 years killing, ordering deaths, destroying lives, building an empire, and never once losing sleep over it. My father died when I was 23. Car bomb meant for me. I took over his organization and expanded it beyond anything he'd imagined. Made millions, built legitimate businesses as fronts, became untouchable. So why me? Why test some random waitress? Because 3 months ago, one of my operations went bad. We were moving into Inglewood territory, and we needed local businesses to cooperate. But they wouldn't. No matter how much money we offered, no matter what threats we made, this community held together. And when my people investigated why, your name kept coming up." Zara blinked. "My name? Apparently you've been feeding half the neighborhood for years, bringing leftover food to the homeless, paying for customers who can't afford their meals, organizing community fundraisers. You're like this beacon of goodness that makes people want to be better, want to protect each other. I just help when I can. That's everything. Don't you see? In my world, kindness is a weakness to exploit. Compassion is leverage. But you made kindness into strength, made a whole community resistant to corruption because you showed them what caring for each other looks like." Jae-sung leaned forward. "So I decided to test you, see if it was real, if someone could genuinely be that good without wanting something in return. I created the Mr. Kim persona, spent weeks preparing, and walked into your diner expecting to expose you as just another con artist with better marketing. And instead, you were real. Day after day, you brought food to a dying stranger, sat with him, talked to him, made him feel human. And somewhere around week 3, I realized I wasn't testing you anymore. I was hoping, desperately hoping that maybe goodness actually existed, that maybe I wasn't too far gone to recognize it." Tears burned in Zara's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "That doesn't excuse what you did. You lied to me, manipulated my compassion." "You're right, it doesn't. Nothing excuses it. I'm telling you this so you understand what you're dealing with. I'm a man who's built his entire life on deception and violence, who tested your kindness like it was a commodity to evaluate, who was planning to use your restaurant dream to launder money. Was planning. I called it off. Told my people you were off limits, that we'd find another way into Inglewood or abandon the territory entirely. Why? Because He stopped, started again. "Because you asked me if I had a daughter, and I told you I'd lost her due to bad choices. That was supposed to be a lie, part of the backstory. But when I said it, I realized it was true. In another life, another world, I could have had a daughter, could have been someone worth knowing, but I made choices that closed those doors forever. Choices can be unmade. Can they? I've killed 17 people, Zara, directly, with my own hands, hundreds more indirectly. I run an organization that sells drugs, guns, people, that destroys lives for profit. How do you unmake that? Zara was quiet for a long moment. You can't. Those things happened. Those people are gone. But Mr. Kim, Jae-sung, redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing differently going forward. Even for someone like me? I don't know. Honestly, I don't. This is way beyond anything I've ever dealt with. You're a criminal, a killer, everything I should run from. She looked at him directly. But for 7 weeks, I saw something different. Someone who listened, who made me feel valued, who talked about loss and regret like he actually felt it. I did feel it. That's what terrifies me. For the first time in a decade, I felt something other than emptiness. And it was because of you. Because you treated a dying stranger with more compassion than I've shown anyone in my entire life. So what do you want from me? Absolution? Permission to feel less guilty? I want a chance. Just one chance to prove that maybe I'm not completely beyond redemption. That maybe your faith in human goodness isn't misplaced. And how exactly would that work? I'm a waitress from South Central. You're a crime boss. We don't exactly run in the same circles. I don't know. I've never done this before. Never wanted to. But Zara, every morning when you brought me breakfast, I felt human. Felt like maybe I could be more than my father's legacy, more than the body count in the blood money. He reached across the table, not touching her, just offering his hand. I can't promise I'll succeed. Can't promise I won't disappoint you. But I can promise complete honesty from this moment forward. No more lies, no more manipulation. Just a fundamentally broken man asking if you believe your own words about redemption. Zara stared at his outstretched hand. Every rational cell in her body screamed to leave. To take the $80,000 and never look back. To protect herself from the danger and heartbreak that getting involved with this man would inevitably bring. But Zara Williams had never been particularly good at doing the rational thing. Her mother had always said she had too much heart and not enough sense. And looking at Jae-sung, really looking, past the expensive suit and the dangerous eyes to the raw vulnerability beneath, she saw the same thing she'd seen in Mr. Kim. Someone who was lost. Someone who needed to know they still mattered. Someone who was testing whether hope still existed in a world that had tried to beat it out of them both. If I do this, Zara said slowly, there are rules, non-negotiable. Anything. 1. No more lies. Ever. I don't care how bad the truth is, I need honesty. 2. You don't use my kindness as a weakness. Don't manipulate my compassion to get what you want. 3. I'm not asking you to leave your organization overnight, but I need to see progress, real, meaningful change, not just words. Agreed. All of it. And 4, she took a breath. You have to let me in. All the way. No walls. No hiding behind the crime lord persona. If we're doing this, I need to see who you really are. Not Mr. Kim, not Kang Jae-sung, the untouchable boss. Just you. Something vulnerable flickered across his face. What if I don't know who that is anymore? Then we figure it out together. Slowly, carefully, Zara reached out and took his hand. The contact sent electricity through both of them. The same spark that had existed even through the lie, even through the makeup and the performance. I'm probably going to regret this, Zara said. Definitely. I come with more baggage than anyone should have to handle. And I'm probably insane for thinking a crime lord can change. Absolutely insane. My world is dangerous. People who get close to me tend to get hurt. So why are we doing this? Jae-sung's grip tightened on her hand. Because for the first time in my life, I want to be worth someone's faith. And you're the only person who's ever looked at me, really looked at me, and seen something worth saving. They sat there in booth 7, hands clasped, two people from impossible worlds trying to build a bridge between them. Zara, with her boundless compassion and belief in human goodness. Jae-sung, with his empire of blood and his desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, redemption wasn't just a beautiful lie. So where do we start? Zara asked. Honestly, I have no idea. I've never tried to be a good person before. Then let's start simple. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., same booth. But this time, you show up as yourself. Real face, real name, real story. And I'll bring you breakfast, just like always. Why? Because that's what started this. Me feeding a stranger who looked like he needed it. Let's build from there. Jae-sung smiled, a real smile, unguarded and almost boyish. You're extraordinary. You know that? I'm just a waitress who's apparently terrible at self-preservation. But yeah, I'll take extraordinary. The next morning, Zara arrived at the diner at 5:45 a.m., heart pounding. She'd spent all night second-guessing herself. Had she really agreed to try a relationship, or whatever this was, with a crime lord? Had she lost her mind? But at 6 a.m. sharp, the door opened. Jae-sung walked in, looking nothing like Mr. Kim. He wore jeans and a simple black t-shirt instead of an expensive suit. His hair was slightly messy. He looked younger, less dangerous, more human. Hi, he said, sliding into booth 7. Hi yourself. Zara poured coffee, her hand only shaking slightly. How do you take it? The real you, I mean. With cream and sugar. Mr. Kim drank it black because I thought that's what a dying man would do. Zara added cream and sugar, then brought him the same breakfast she'd been making for weeks. Scrambled eggs, bacon, hash browns, toast. Some things don't change. Jae-sung took a bite, and his eyes closed briefly. This tastes different somehow. Better. Same recipe. Maybe it's just better without the lies. They talked for 2 hours. Jae-sung told her about growing up in a world of violence, about his mother who'd been killed when he was 12, about his father's teachings that love was weakness and compassion was liability, about the first time he'd killed and how the emptiness had scared him more than the act itself. And Zara listened, not judging, not excusing, just bearing witness to a life so different from her own that it might as well have been alien. I want to show you something, Jae-sung said when he finished. Will you come with me? Every warning bell rang in Zara's head. Where? My world, not the dangerous parts, just who I am beyond this booth. If we're doing this, you need to see all of it. Okay, but I need to be back by 11. I have a shift. I'll have you back by 10:30. Jae-sung's car was exactly what Zara expected. Sleek, black, expensive enough to pay her rent for a year. But as they drove through Los Angeles, he didn't take her to some criminal hideout. Instead, they went to a community center in Koreatown. This is one of my legitimate businesses, Jae-sung explained as they walked through. After-school programs for immigrant kids, ESL classes, job training. My father built it as a front for money laundering. I kept it running because some part of me wanted to create something that wasn't destructive, wanted to give back to the community that my family had taken from. He showed her classrooms full of children, elderly people learning English, teenagers getting help with college applications. This is good work, Zara said softly. It's still funded by blood money, still built on a foundation of crimes. But yeah, it's good work. It's the part of my life that I don't hate. They visited 3 more locations, a restaurant, a grocery store, a small medical clinic, all legitimate businesses, all funded by criminal operations but serving real community needs. I'm not trying to convince you I'm a good person, Jae-sung said as they drove back to the diner. I'm not. But I wanted you to see that there's more to what I do than just violence and exploitation. That maybe there's a foundation to build on. Why are you really doing this? Zara asked. Being honest with me, showing me all this. You could have just given me the money and walked away. Jae-sung pulled over, turned to face her. Because 7 weeks ago, I thought compassion was a weakness to exploit. Thought kindness was just manipulation with better marketing. And then you proved me wrong. Day after day, you brought food to a dying stranger for no reason except that it was the right thing to do. So you gave me hope. For the first time in my life, I saw someone who was genuinely good, who chose kindness even when it cost them. And I thought, if someone like you exists, if goodness is real, then maybe I'm not completely beyond saving. Tears burned in Zara's eyes. That's a lot of weight to put on someone, Jae-sung. I'm not some perfect angel. I'm just a person who tries to help when I can. I know, but you're the first person who ever made me want to try, to be better, to become someone worthy of the kindness you showed a dying stranger who didn't deserve it. Everyone deserves kindness, Even crime lords who lie about being old men. He laughed, and the sound was lighter than anything she'd heard from him before. See? That right there. That ability to joke about something that should have you running for the hills. How do you do that? Practice. Lots and lots of practice choosing to see the best in people even when they show me their worst. The next weeks were a strange dance of worlds colliding. Jae-sung showed up every morning at the diner, no longer in disguise. Other patrons started noticing. A young, handsome Korean man who clearly had money but dressed down to sit in a South Central diner and talk to Zara during her breaks. Your boyfriend? Marcus asked one day. Not subtle at all. It's complicated, Zara said, which was the understatement of the century. He looks at you like you're the only person in the world. That's not complicated. That's dangerous. Why dangerous? Because men like that, men with that kind of intensity, they don't do casual. They don't do halfway. Whatever you two have going on, he's all in. Question is, are you? Zara didn't have an answer, because the truth was messy and complicated and probably insane. She was falling for a crime lord who'd lied to her for weeks, who'd admitted to killing people, who ran an organization built on violence and exploitation, but she was also falling for the man who listened to her dreams like they mattered, who asked about her day with genuine interest, who was slowly, painfully trying to become someone better, and she didn't know which reality was more true. Tell me about your mother, Jae-sung said one morning. They'd moved past small talk weeks ago, diving into the deep stuff. She was everything, strong, kind, endlessly patient with my stubborn ass. Zara smiled at the memory. Worked herself to death trying to give me opportunities she never had. Wanted me to go to a 4-year university, become someone important. You are important. I'm a waitress who dropped out of community college. That's not what she dreamed for me. You feed people, create community, make strangers feel human. That's more important than any degree. Zara laughed. You sound like her. She always said the world needed more people who cared, less people who just achieved. She sounds like she was an extraordinary woman. She was, and she would have hated that I'm involved with someone like you. Someone dangerous, someone who could hurt me. The honesty landed like a punch. Jae-sung's expression shuddered. I know. You think I don't know how insane this is? How wrong? I'm literally the last person on earth you should trust. And yet I do. God help me, I trust you. Not because it makes sense, but because every day you show up and try. Every day you're a little more honest, a little more vulnerable, a little more willing to change. What if I can't? What if this? He gestured between them. What if wanting to be better isn't enough? What if I'm too broken? Then we figure it out together. But Jae-sung, you have to stop expecting perfection from yourself. Change doesn't happen overnight. It's choosing differently 1,000 times a day until the new choice becomes natural. He reached across the table, taking her hand. How did you get so wise? Survival. When you grow up poor and black in America, you learn fast that the world won't give you anything. You have to make your own meaning. Choose your own hope. I want that. Want to choose hope instead of emptiness. Choose connection instead of isolation. Choose you instead of the life my father built for me. So choose it, right now, every single day. Choose it until it becomes who you are. But choosing was harder than either of them anticipated. 3 months into their strange relationship, reality crashed in. Zara was walking to her car after a late shift when 3 men stepped out of the shadows. She recognized the type immediately. Predators who saw a lone woman as easy prey. Nice purse, one said, blocking her path. Hand it over. Zara's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. I've got maybe $40 in a dead phone. Not worth your time. We'll decide what's worth our time. She was reaching for her purse, ready to just give it and leave, when a car screeched to a stop. Jae-sung emerged, and the temperature dropped about 20 degrees. The shift was instant. The man Zara knew, thoughtful, vulnerable, trying to change, vanished. In his place stood someone completely different, someone who radiated danger like heat. He spoke in rapid Korean to the men. Zara didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Cold, deadly, absolute. The would-be muggers went pale. One started apologizing profusely. Another literally backed against a wall. Then Jae-sung did something that made Zara's blood run cold. He pulled out a gun, casual like it was nothing, and pointed it at the leader's head. More Korean, sharp, unforgiving. Jae-sung, Zara breathed. Don't. He didn't even look at her, just kept the gun trained on the man, who was now on his knees, begging. More Korean. The other two men dragged their leader away, stumbling over themselves to escape. When they were gone, Jae-sung turned to Zara, and she took an involuntary step back. Because the man looking at her wasn't the one who showed up every morning for breakfast. This was the crime lord, the killer, the monster she'd been trying so hard not to see. You had a gun, she said, voice shaking. You were going to kill him. Over $40 in a purse. No, over you. Over someone threatening what's mine. I'm not a possession. I know that. But in my world, anyone who threatens you is signing their own death warrant. That's how this works. That's who I am. No, that's who you were. Who you said you were trying not to be anymore. Jae-sung's laugh was bitter. You think wanting to change means I can? You think your kindness and breakfast are enough to erase 28 years of violence? They were going to hurt you, Zara. Take your money, your phone, maybe more. And you wanted me to just let that happen? I wanted you to call the police, to handle it like a normal person. I'm not a normal person. I'm a criminal, a killer. I've told you this. But you keep trying to see something better, something redeemable. And tonight you saw the truth. This is who I really am. Tears streamed down Zara's face. Is it? Or is this just easier? Staying the monster instead of doing the hard work of becoming something else? The accusation hit like a slap. Jae-sung's expression cracked, pain bleeding through the hardness. You don't understand what you're asking. The world I come from, showing weakness gets you killed. Hesitating gets the people you love destroyed. Then maybe you need to leave that world. It's not that simple. Why not? You have money, resources, legitimate businesses. What's actually keeping you in the criminal empire except fear and habit? The question hung between them, brutal in its honesty. Jae-sung stared at her, and Zara saw him wrestling with something fundamental. Fear, yes, but also identity, purpose, the entire foundation of who he'd been taught to be. I don't know how to be anything else, he finally admitted, voice raw. This life, this violence, it's all I've ever known. My father raised me to be his successor, trained me to be ruthless, and I was good at it. So good that I built something even bigger than what he left me. So build something else, something that doesn't require you to point guns at people's heads. And if I can't, if this is just who I fundamentally am? Zara stepped closer, despite everything, despite the fear. Then I was wrong. People can't change. Redemption is a fantasy, and I've been wasting my time feeding a monster who likes to pretend he's human. The words were cruel, designed to wound. And they did. Zara saw Jae-sung flinch like she'd physically struck him. Is that what you really think? He asked quietly. I don't know what to think anymore. 3 months ago, you were a dying old man I fed out of kindness. Then you were a crime lord asking for redemption. Now you're someone who pulls guns on people in parking lots. Which one is real? All of them. None of them. I don't know. Jae-sung ran a hand through his hair, the gesture so tired and human it broke through Zara's anger. I'm trying, Zara. Every day I'm trying to be the person you see when you look at me. But tonight, when I saw those men threatening you, everything else disappeared. All I could think was that I'd kill anyone who hurt you. That's not love. That's possession. There's a difference. Is there? In my world, protecting what you love means being willing to destroy anything that threatens it. And in mine, love means being better. Being someone worth loving, not just someone powerful enough to keep threats away. They stared at each other across a gulf that suddenly seemed insurmountable. Zara from her world of kindness and faith in human goodness. Jae-sung from his world of violence and survival at any cost. I should go, Zara said, exhaustion replacing anger. I need time to think, to figure out if this is even possible. Don't! Jae-sung reached for her, then stopped himself. Please, let me take you home. Make sure you're safe. I can take care of myself. I know you can, but please, let me do this one thing. Then I'll give you space, as much as you need. The drive to Zara's apartment was silent. When they arrived, she turned to him. I meant what I said. I need time To figure out if redemption is real or just a story, I tell myself to feel better about being attracted to someone I shouldn't be. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. Waiting, hoping, trying to become worth the faith you showed a dying stranger. Zara got out, then paused. Jae-sung, tonight when you pulled that gun, you didn't fire it. Why? Because I heard your voice, saying my name, and for the first time in my life, that mattered more than making a point. More than establishing dominance. You asked me not to, and I couldn't. That's growth. Remember that. Even when you think you're still the same monster, remember that you chose differently because someone asked you to. She went inside, leaving Jae-sung sitting in his car, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Because she was right. For the first time in his life, he'd hesitated. Had chosen not to pull the trigger even when every instinct screamed to do it. It wasn't much. Wasn't redemption or transformation. But it was something. A crack in the armor he'd worn for so long he'd forgotten it wasn't his skin. Zara didn't come to the diner the next morning. Or the next. Or the next. She called in sick, spent 3 days in her apartment, wrestling with impossible questions. Could people really change? Could someone built from violence and blood become something gentler? And more importantly, was it her responsibility to help him try, or was she just setting herself up for heartbreak? Shanice came over on day 4, took one look at Zara's tear-stained face and unwashed hair, and said, "Okay, spill. What happened?" So Zara told her everything. The dying old man, the weeks of feeding him, the revelation, the tentative relationship, and finally the gun in the parking lot and her terror at seeing who Jae-sung really was beneath the veneer of change. "Girl," Shanice said when she finished, "you are in way over your head." "I know. This man is dangerous. Like actually dangerous. Not bad boy dangerous, but might get you killed dangerous." "I know that too. And you're still considering staying with him. Why?" Zara struggled to articulate something she barely understood herself. "Because Shanice, when I look at him, I see two people. The crime lord he was raised to be, and the man he's trying to become. And that second person? He's kind. He's thoughtful. He listens like what I say matters. And he's fighting against literally everything he's ever known to try to be worthy of basic human kindness. That's not your job to fix. I know it's not. But what if I'm the only person who's ever given him a reason to try? What if walking away means he stops trying and becomes exactly what his father raised him to be? And what if staying means you end up dead in a ditch because some rival gang uses you to get to him? What if loving him costs you everything? What if it doesn't? What if this is one of those rare moments where love actually does change someone? Where redemption is real? Shanice pulled Zara into a hug. "Baby girl, I can't tell you what to do, but I need you to be honest with yourself. Are you staying because you believe in him or because you're scared of being alone again? Because one of those is love and the other is just fear with better marketing." The question haunted Zara long after Shanice left. Was she really seeing Jae-sung's potential or just projecting her own needs onto a dangerous man? Was her faith in redemption genuine or just the romantic delusion of someone who'd rather believe in fairy tales than face reality? On day 7, Zara returned to work. Booth 7 was empty. No Jae-sung, no handsome crime lord nursing coffee and looking at her like she was his entire world. Just an empty booth that somehow felt like an accusation. "He was here every day," Marcus said quietly. 6 a.m. sharp. Sat in that booth for 2 hours. Didn't order anything except coffee. Just sat there, waiting. Then he'd leave when you didn't show. "Did he say anything?" "Asked me to give you this." Marcus handed her an envelope. Heavy paper, expensive. Inside was a check for $80,000 made out to Zara Williams and a note in elegant handwriting. "You were right. Redemption can't be built on possession or fear. It has to be a free choice, made without coercion or obligation. This is the money I promised. Enough to start your restaurant. No strings, no expectations. Whether you walk away or decide to try again, your dreams shouldn't be held hostage to my failures. Thank you for showing me what kindness looks like. Thank you for believing, even briefly, that I could be more than what I was raised to be. If you decide I'm worth another chance, I'll be waiting. If not, I understand. Either way, you changed my life." Jae-sung Zara stared at the check, hands trembling. $80,000. Her dream, wrapped up in a piece of paper. Freedom from the diner, from struggling, from always being one emergency away from losing everything. And all she had to do was walk away from a crime lord who'd lied to her, manipulated her, and pulled a gun in front of her. It should have been an easy choice. Take the money, start her restaurant, move on with her life. Let Jae-sung become someone else's redemption project. But Zara had never been good at easy choices. And looking at that note, at the elegant handwriting that spelled out his recognition of exactly what she tried to tell him, she realized something crucial. He'd heard her, not just listened, but actually heard, had taken her words about choice and freedom and made them real by removing himself from the equation, by giving her the money with no expectation of seeing her again. That was growth, real, painful growth, the kind that cost something. "Marcus," Zara said slowly, "I need to take a break." "Where are you going?" "To make a choice, a real one, with clear eyes and no illusions." Zara found Jae-sung at the community center in Koreatown. He was in a classroom, helping an elderly Korean woman practice English. His posture was relaxed, his smile genuine, and for a moment Zara just watched him be exactly what he'd shown her during those breakfast conversations. Human, patient, kind. He looked up, saw her, and froze. The elderly woman noticed, said something in Korean, then patted his hand and left them alone. "You got my note," Jae-sung said. "Not a question. I got it, along with enough money to change my life. You deserve it. You deserve all of it and more." He stayed in his chair, didn't approach. "I'm not expecting anything, Zara. This isn't manipulation. It's just what I should have done from the start. Helped without expecting anything in return." Zara crossed the room, sat in the chair the elderly woman had vacated. "You're learning. You're a good teacher, stubborn, principled, refusing to let me hide behind excuses. You pulled a gun on someone. I did, and I've spent every moment since trying to understand why, not just the surface answer, that they threatened you, but the deeper why. Why that was my instinct. Why violence is always my first response. And I realize that being raised in violence isn't an excuse. It's an explanation. But explanation doesn't justify continuation. If I want to change, really change, I have to actively choose different responses. Build new instincts. That's going to take years, maybe decades. I know, which is why I'm not asking you to stay while I figure it out. That's not fair to you. You've already given me more than I deserved, showed me what compassion looks like, what it means to choose kindness even when it costs you." Zara studied his face, saw genuine resignation, not manipulation. He really was prepared to let her walk away. "What if I don't want to leave?" Hope flashed across his features, quickly suppressed. "Then you'd be making a terrible decision. I'm a work in progress at best, a dangerous liability at worst." "Yeah, probably. But Jae-sung, here's the thing. I've been thinking about what you said, about not knowing how to be anything other than what you were raised to be. And I realized something." "What?" "Nobody knows how to be anything until they try. I didn't know how to be a caretaker until my mom got sick. Didn't know how to be resilient until I lost everything. Didn't know how to forgive until I had to choose between bitterness and hope." She reached across to take his hand. "You don't know how to be a good person because you've never tried, but trying is how you learn. I don't want to hurt you, don't want my world to destroy the goodness in you. Then don't let it. Make different choices, build something better, and let me help. Not as your savior or your redemption, but as your partner." "Partner?" He tested the word like it was foreign. "You'd really stay, knowing everything you know, all the violence, the blood, the danger?" "I'm staying with conditions, real ones, not just pretty words." "Tell me." "One, you start transitioning out of the criminal operations, not overnight, but with a real timeline and plan. 2, you talk to someone professional, a therapist, someone who can help you process the violence you've lived with and build healthier coping mechanisms. 3, no more guns around me, ever. I can't build a life with someone who solves problems with violence. That last one, Zara, in my world, not carrying a gun is dangerous. It makes you vulnerable. Then change your world. You have legitimate businesses, resources, intelligence. Use them to build something that doesn't require constant armed vigilance." Jae-sung was quiet for a long moment. That will take time. And during the transition, there will be risks. People in my organization who resist. Rivals who see the change as weakness. I know. I'm not naive about what I'm signing up for. But Jae-sung, if you really want to change, you have to commit. Not halfway, not eventually. Actually commit to becoming someone different. And if I fail, if the violence is too ingrained, then we'll deal with it. Together. But you have to try. Really try. Not just for me, but for yourself. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you. Don't deserve this chance. Probably not. But love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. And I'm choosing to believe that the man who showed up every morning for breakfast, who listened to my dreams, who's trying against everything he's ever known to become something better, that man is worth the risk. I love you. The words were raw, unpracticed. I don't know if I'm saying it right, if I even know what it means. But when I think about my future, you're in it. And when I imagine becoming someone better, it's because I want to be worthy of you. I love you too, the real you. Not Mr. Kim, not the crime lord, but the complicated, broken, trying man underneath all of it. They kissed then, soft and searching, two people from impossible worlds trying to build something that made sense to no one but themselves. The next 2 years were the hardest of both their lives. Jae-sung began the painful process of going legitimate, which meant dealing with resistance from within his organization, threats from rivals who saw the transition as weakness, and his own deep-seated instincts toward violence. He started therapy, something that would have been unthinkable in his father's day, worked with a specialist who understood trauma and violence, learned that the emptiness he'd felt his whole life wasn't actually emptiness, but buried emotions he'd been trained to suppress. Zara opened her restaurant with the $80,000, creating exactly what she dreamed of, a place where good food met fair prices, where community gathered, where everyone was welcome. She named it Hope's Table after her mother's middle name. And slowly, painfully, impossibly, they built a life together. There were setbacks, times when Jae-sung's instincts overtook his intentions. Nights when Zara wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Moments when the gap between their worlds seemed too vast to bridge. But there were also mornings when Jae-sung showed up at Hope's Table at 6 a.m., just like he had at the diner, when he'd help prep food and talk about his progress, when he'd look at Zara like she was his entire universe and say, "Thank you for not giving up on me." One morning, exactly 2 years after the gun incident, Jae-sung came to the restaurant and found Zara prepping for the day. He sat at the counter, their counter now in her restaurant, and she brought him coffee with cream and sugar without being asked. "I have news," and he said. "Good or bad?" "Good, I think. The last of the criminal operations are shut down. Everything I run now is completely legitimate. Community centers, restaurants, import businesses that actually import legal goods. I'm officially no longer a crime lord." Zara's hands trembled as she set down the coffee pot. "You're serious?" "Completely. It took 2 years, cost me a fortune in payoffs and settlements, and I'll probably spend the rest of my life making amends for what I did. But Zara, I'm out. I'm free." She came around the counter, pulled him into her arms. "I'm so proud of you, so incredibly proud. I couldn't have done it without you, without knowing that someone believed I could be more than what I was raised to be." "You did it, not me. I just showed you what was already there." Jae-sung pulled back, reached into his pocket. "I have something else." He opened a small box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a single stone that caught the morning light. "I know we've been taking things slow. Know that you wanted me to prove I could change before we made anything permanent. And I know I'm probably still doing this wrong, but Zara Williams, will you marry me?" "You're really asking? After everything?" "I'm asking because of everything. Because you saw a dying old man and decided to feed him. Because you believed in redemption when I'd given up on myself. Because you stayed when you had every reason to run. Because you're the best person I've ever known. And spending my life trying to be worthy of you sounds like the best possible future." Tears streamed down Zara's face. "Yes, God, yes. You stubborn, complicated, wonderful man. Yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, and they kissed in the morning light of a restaurant built on kindness and faith, and the stubborn belief that people could change. 5 years later, Zara stood in Hope's Table, watching their daughter, 3 years old with Jae-sung's eyes and her smile, play with blocks in the corner. The restaurant had expanded, now employing 20 people and serving hundreds daily. Jae-sung came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "About a dying old man who walked into a diner asking for nothing but coffee. About the girl who decided to feed him anyway. About how one act of kindness changed absolutely everything. Best decision I ever made, pretending to be dying in your diner." Zara elbowed him gently. "Still not funny. You lied to me for weeks. I know, and I've spent the last 7 years making it up to you. How am I doing?" She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd transformed from crime lord to community leader to devoted husband and father. "You're doing pretty well, though you still have about 60 years of breakfast making to go." "I can live with that." He kissed her softly. "Zara, do you ever regret it? Choosing to stay? Taking the risk on someone like me?" "Never, not even once. Because Jae-sung, you're living proof that redemption is real, that people can change, that kindness isn't weakness, it's the strongest force in the world." Their daughter toddled over, signing hungry in the baby sign language they'd taught her. Zara scooped her up and Jae-sung went to the kitchen to make breakfast, a skill he'd mastered over years of morning rituals. As she watched him cook, Zara thought about what Marcus had said years ago, that she had too much heart, that it would get her in trouble one day. He'd been right. Her heart had gotten her into the most complicated, dangerous, impossible situation imaginable. But it had also brought her here, to a family she'd built with a man who'd learned to choose love over violence, to a restaurant that fed not just bodies, but souls, to a life that proved kindness wasn't just nice, it was transformative. Jae-sung returned with plates of food, scrambled eggs just like she used to make for Mr. Kim. He sat across from her, their daughter between them, and for a moment Zara saw both men clearly, the crime lord he'd been and the father he'd become. "What?" he asked, catching her staring. "Just remembering Booth 7, a dying old man who couldn't afford breakfast, and the foolish waitress who fed him anyway. That foolish waitress saved my life, and that dying old man gave me a reason to believe that even the most broken things can be made whole, again." They ate breakfast together as morning light streamed through the windows of Hope's table. A former crime lord, a waitress with too much heart, and the daughter who would grow up knowing that her father had been a bad man who chose to become good. Because that was the truth Zara had learned from feeding a stranger 7 years ago. Redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about choosing differently day after day until the new choices became the truth of who you were. And Kang Jae-sung had chosen. Every single day for 7 years, he'd chosen to be better, to honor the faith a waitress had shown a dying man who didn't deserve it. That choice, repeated endlessly, had transformed everything. A lie had become truth, a test had become love, and a monster had become a man worth saving. All because Zara Williams had seen someone hungry and decided to feed them, had seen someone lost and decided to help, had seen someone broken and decided to believe they could be made whole. Kindness, it turned out, really was the strongest force in the world, strong enough to cross impossible distances, strong enough to transform lives, strong enough to prove that even in the darkest places, hope could still grow. And it all started with breakfast in Booth 7 and a waitress who refused to let a stranger die alone.